Strategy number 3. Concentrate on a single task. This is perhaps one of the greatest obstacles we face today. With so much technology and so many distractions, we are listening to a video on YouTube while writing an email. When suddenly a chat prompt pops up and we answer it, then our smartphone vibrates in our pocket. Just as soon as we respond to that message, we are back at our computer logging onto the Facebook. Pretty soon, 30 minutes have passed and we have forgotten what the email we were writing was supposed to be about. This also happens sometimes when we put on a movie with the dinner and don't realize how delicious the salmon was until we are taking the last bite. We often think that combining tasks will save us time, but scientific evidence shows that it has the opposite effect. Even those who claim to be good at multitasking are not very productive. In fact, they are some of the least productive people. Our brains can take in millions of bits of information but can only actually process a few dozen per second. When we say we are multitasking, we are really doing in is switching back and forth between tasks very quickly. Unfortunately, we are not computers adept at parallel processing. We end up spending all our energy alternating between the tasks instead of focusing on doing one of them well. Concentrating on one thing at a time may be the single most important factor in achieving flow. According to the Csikszentmihalyi, in order to focus on a task, we need two things to be done. First one, to be in a distraction free environment. Second one, to have control over what we are doing at every moment. Technology is great if you are in control of it. It is not so great if it takes control of us. For example, if you have to write a research paper, you might sit down at your computer and use Google to look up the information you need. However, if you are not very disciplined, you might end up surfing the web instead of writing that paper. In that case, Google and the internet will have taken over, pulling you out of your state of flow. It has been scientifically shown that if we continually ask our brains to switch back and forth between tasks, we waste time, make more mistakes, and remember less of what we have done. Several studies conducted at Stanford University by Clifford Uvernas describe our generation as suffering from an epidemic of multitasking. One such study analyzed the behavior of hundreds of students, dividing them into groups based on the number of things they tended to do at once. The students who were the most addicted to multitasking typically alternated among more than 4 tasks. For example, taking notes while reading a textbook, listening to a podcast, answering messages on their smartphones, and sometimes checking their Twitter timeline. Each group of students was shown a screen with several red and several blue arrows. The objective of the exercise was to count the red arrows. At first, all the students answered correctly right way without much trouble. As the number of blue arrows increased, the number of red arrows stayed the same, only their position changed. However, the students accustomed to multitasking had serious trouble counting the red arrows in the time allotted or as quickly as the students who did not habitually multitask. For one very simple reason, they got distracted by the blue arrows. Their brains were trained to pay attention to every stimulus regardless of its importance, while the brains of the other students were trained to focus on a single task. In this case, counting the red arrows and ignoring the blue ones. Other studies indicate that working on several things at once lowers our productivity by at least 60% and our IQ by more than 10 points. One study funded by the Swedish Council for Working Life and Social Research found that a sample group of more than 4,000 young adults between the ages of 20 and 24 who were addicted to their smartphones got less sleep, felt less connected to their community at school, and were more likely to show signs of depression. What can we do to avoid all falling victim to this flow impeding epidemic? How can we train our brains to focus on a single task? Here are a few ideas for creating a space and time free of distractions to increase our chances of reaching a state of flow and thereby getting in touch with our ikigai. First one, don't look at any kind of screen for the first hour you are awake and the last hour before you go to sleep. Second one, turn off your phone before you achieve flow. This is nothing more important than the task you have chosen to do during this time. If this seems too extreme, enable the do not disturb function so simply the people closest to you can contact you in case of emergency. Third, designate one day of the week, perhaps a Saturday or Sunday, a day of technological fasting, making exemptions only for e readers without Wi Fi or MP3 players. Fourth, go to a cave that doesn't have a Wi Fi. Fifth, read and respond to email only once or twice per day. Define those times clearly and stick to them. Sixth, try the Pomodoro technique. That is, get yourself a kitchen timer. Soon or some are made to look like a Pomodoro or tomato and commit to working on a single task as long as it's running. The Pomodoro technique recommends 25 minutes of work and 5 minutes of rest for each cycle. But you can also do 15 minutes of work and 10 minutes of rest. Find the pace that's best for you. The most important thing is to be disciplined in completing each cycle. Start your work session with a ritual you enjoy and end it with your reward. Train your mind to return to the present when you find yourself getting distracted. Practice mindfulness or an other form of meditation. Go for a walk or a swim, whatever will help you to get centered again. Work in a space where you will not be distracted. If you can't do this at home, go to a library, a cave, or if your task involves playing the saxophone, a music studio. If you find that your surroundings continue to distract you, keep looking until you find the right place. Next point, divide each activity into groups of related tasks and assign each group its own place and time. For example, if you are writing a magazine article, you could do research and take notes at home in the morning, write in the library in the afternoon, and edit on the couch at night. Bundle routine tasks such as sending out invoices, making phone calls, and so on, and do them all at once.